He was secretly planning to kidnap our kids to Singapore. 2 weeks ago, I thought my husband was just planning a family vacation. But when I found flight tickets, custody papers, and passport photos of our kids hidden in a manila envelope, I realized he was planning to disappear across the world without me. About 2 weeks ago, I was using Martin's laptop because mine was dead and I needed to check an email about my kids' daycare. Nothing sus about that, right? But when I opened the browser, I saw he had been looking at visa requirements for Singapore. We've never talked about Singapore. Like, never ever. I didn't think much of it TBH, maybe it was for something else. But then I noticed he'd also been looking at international schools in Singapore. We have a 3YO and a 1NIO. Why would he be looking at schools in another country? I closed the laptop and tried to forget about it, but something felt off. That night at dinner, I casually asked if he'd ever thought about visiting Singapore. And he got this weird look on his face and said, "Not really, why?" and changed the subject super fast. I could tell he was lying because he wouldn't make eye contact and kept fidgeting with his fork. Red flag FR. The next day, while he was at work, I went through his laptop again. I know. Invasion of privacy, whatever, but I was freaking out. I found emails between him and someone named Grace. The emails weren't like super explicit or anything, but there was definitely something going on. She kept saying stuff like, "I can't wait until we can be together properly," and "The waiting is killing me." But here's where it gets really messed up. In one email, she said, "I've been looking at houses near that school we liked. Plenty of room for the kids to play." The kids. My kids. What the actual hell? I kept digging and found out Martin had applied for a job transfer to their Singapore office. He never mentioned this to me. Not once. And he'd been approved. The transfer was scheduled for next month. He had a freaking plane ticket already purchased. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Martin and I have been together since high school. We have 2 beautiful children together. How could he do this? How could he plan to take my babies away from me? I was literally shaking so hard I dropped his laptop and cracked the screen. Oops. Instead of confronting him right away, which TBH was my first instinct, I decided to be smart about this. I took pictures of everything I found and sent them to my sister. Then I started monitoring his texts by syncing his messages to the iPad. He doesn't know I can see them. For the next week, I watched as he texted this Grace person constantly. They never said anything explicitly about taking my kids, but they talked about the plan and making sure everything goes smoothly. He kept assuring her that everything was on track. I also found out he'd been moving money to a separate account. Small amounts at first, but over the past 3 months, it added up to almost $20,000. Our savings is basically gone. I feel sick thinking about how long he's been planning this. Yesterday, I decided I needed to know who this Grace person is. I went through Martin's contacts and found her number. I didn't call her or anything. I just wanted to see if I could figure out who she was. I searched her on social media and OMG. She's his coworker. They've been working together for over a year. Her Instagram is full of pictures from office parties and team lunches. Martin is in a bunch of them. She posted a picture 2 months ago with the caption, "Sometimes the best things in life come when you least expect them," with heart emoji. And Martin had liked it. I wanted to throw up. Today, I decided enough was enough. I waited until the kids were napping and confronted Martin. I didn't tell him everything I knew, just asked again about Singapore. He denied everything at first, said it was just something he was looking into for a potential vacation. I called him a liar, told him I knew about Grace. His face went completely white. He started stammering, saying I didn't understand, that it wasn't what it looked like. Classic. I asked him straight up if he was planning to take our children to Singapore. He wouldn't answer. We started arguing, voices getting louder. I was so angry I could barely see straight. He kept saying I was overreacting, that I was crazy. But then his phone buzzed. It was a text from Grace. I lunged for it, but he grabbed it first, holding it away from me. I screamed at him, demanding to see it. He refused, backing away from me. I followed him into the kitchen, still yelling. He was trying to delete the message when I grabbed his arm. He shoved me away, hard. I stumbled backward and hit the counter. That's when I saw it. On the kitchen counter was a manila envelope. It was partially open, and I could see passport photos of our children inside. Martin saw me looking at it, and his eyes went wild. He lunged for the envelope just as I did. We both grabbed it at the same time and started wrestling for it. Papers flew everywhere. I saw flight itineraries, passport applications, custody documents, everything laid out in black and white. His plan to take my babies away. I screamed and tried to gather the papers, but Martin grabbed me by the hair and yanked me backward. I broke free and ran for the kitchen drawer where we keep the big knife. First update. So I guess I'm back with part 2, and honestly, if you read my first post, Buckle up, because if you thought that was wild, this is going to be even more of a mess. I'm still not sure I'm processing any of this right, but at least now I know I'm not crazy, just surrounded by people who apparently lost their damn minds. Let's just say, after that disaster in the kitchen, me and Martin basically wrestling over an envelope like we're in some kind of low-budget reality show, which, by the way, I never want to experience again. I didn't even process what I was doing. I had my hand in the knife drawer, and for a split second, I just wanted him to back off. Not that I'd actually use it, but the look on his face when he realized how far this had gone, you could tell he never expected me to push back. The vibe was all wrong. Like, I get that people fight, but this wasn't normal married couple drama. This was survival mode. Anyway, the kids start screaming from upstairs, because of course they heard the chaos. Great parenting moment right there. And suddenly the spell is kind of broken. Martin lets go of my hair. I'm clutching a handful of crumpled flight itineraries, and there's Grace's name on literally everything. I honestly don't remember exactly what I yelled, but it was something like, "You're not taking my kids, you psycho!" And Martin's just standing there breathing heavy, looking like he doesn't even recognize himself. Or me, honestly. I ran upstairs, still clutching the docks, and the kids are both standing in the hallway, eyes huge. My 3-year-old asking if daddy is mad and if someone's in trouble. I said something like, "Let's get your shoes on. We're going to grandma's." I grabbed my phone, my keys, the iPad. Can't forget that, since it has all the synced messages. Diapers. Whatever random crap I could stuff in a tote. And just bolted. I left Martin with the kitchen looking like a tornado hit it. Papers everywhere. And zero explanation. I didn't even lock the door. I called my mom on the way, trying not to sound like I was losing it, which obviously failed because she answered, and I just blurted out, "I need you. Now. It's bad." She didn't even ask questions, just said to come over, and I swear, if I could bottle up one moment of my life and replay it, it would be hearing my mom go into full mama bear mode. I wanted to cry, but also, I kinda just wanted to scream. When I got to their house, my mom took one look at me and the kids, saw the torn envelope and the docs, and just said, "What happened?" Not in that fake calm way, but in a way that made me realize she was about to throw hands if necessary. Dad was still at work, so she started texting him like, "Get home right now." She made the kids grilled cheese and sat with me at the table, and I spilled everything. Martin, Grace, Singapore, the emails, the money, the physical fight. I showed her the bruises on my arm. She looked so pissed, but also kinda sad, which just made me feel worse. She started asking practical questions, like, did Martin have the kids' passports? No, I found them in the envelope. Score 1 for me. Did he have any way of taking them without my consent? I mean, he had flight tickets, but I don't think he could just grab them and go without my signature, right? Right? She wanted to call the police, and I said no. Not yet. Not unless he actually tries something. I was scared. But also, what do you even say? "Hi, my husband's planning to kidnap our children to Singapore but hasn't technically done it yet." It sounds like a bad soap opera. Dad got home maybe an hour later, and that's when things got loud. My dad is usually the, "Let's talk this out, nobody needs to yell" type. But not this time. He wanted to go straight to Martin's place and talk some sense into him. Mom was all for it, but I said no. Because honestly, I was scared he'd make things worse. My dad's got this old school protect my daughter at all costs energy, which is sweet. But also, I didn't want him to get arrested for breaking down the door. So we kinda sat in this weird tension, like all of us waiting for a bomb to go off. The kids were running around like nothing happened. Thank God for tablets and SpongeBob. And I was just scrolling through Martin's messages on the iPad, my mom reading over my shoulder. Grace texted him again, something like, "Did you talk to her? Is she going to sign?" And Martin replied, "She's being difficult. I'll handle it." My mom just snorted like, "He's got another thing coming if he thinks you're going to roll over." I honestly loved her so much in that moment, even if my stomach was in knots. It got even more awkward when Martin started blowing up my phone. First, it was calls, then texts, then more calls. I ignored all of them, but finally, he sent this long, rambling voice note. He said I was overreacting, that I was making a scene in front of the kids, that nothing was set in stone, and he just wanted what was best for everyone. He never said, "I'm sorry," not once. He kept making it sound like I was the one causing problems. My mom wanted to call him back and read him the riot act, but I said no because I wanted to control the story. I wanted to see what he'd do next. Maybe that was stupid, but I was sick of being the one who reacted. I wanted to be the one who acted for once. Dad, meanwhile, was on his own mission. He started calling his friend who knows someone in family law. Classic dad move, networking when I'm falling apart. And he was all, "We need to talk to someone who understands this stuff because if Martin tries anything, we need to be ready." Mom started texting Martin's mom because apparently they still talk sometimes, which is news to me. She just sent a simple, "We need to talk. Now." No explanation. Martin's mom called back within minutes, and from what I could hear, she was totally caught off guard. She kept asking if I was okay, if the kids were safe, if Martin really did all that. I could hear the disbelief in her voice, like her son would never do something like that. My mom wasn't having it. She just said, "Your son planned to take my grandkids out of the country without telling anyone. We have proof." She sent her some of the photos I'd taken of the docs, and after that, Martin's mom got real quiet. I don't think she knew what to say. That night was the longest of my life. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept replaying the kitchen fight, the look on Martin's face, the way he just snapped. I kept waiting for someone to show up at the door. Him, Grace, the police. I don't know. I guess I was kind of paranoid, but also, after what I'd seen, how could I not be? In the morning, I woke up to find my dad already dressed, making coffee, and typing out a list on his phone. He was in crisis mode, which for him means lists, plans, and backup plans. He wanted to go to the house and get the rest of our stuff because, let's be real, I wasn't taking the kids back there. Not with Martin around. He suggested I call a lawyer, and my mom agreed. They both offered to pay, which I appreciated, since Martin had drained our savings. I felt weird about it, but also, what choice did I have? I texted my sister to fill her in, and she was immediately like, "Do not go back alone. I'll come with you." She's always been the more confrontational one in the family, and TBH, I was grateful to have her. We drove over mid-morning, and the whole time my hands were shaking on the wheel. Martin's car was in the driveway, but I didn't see him through the windows. I texted him, told him I was coming to get some things, and that I'd appreciate it if he gave me space. No answer. My sister, who is way braver than me, just marched up to the door and let us in. I still had my key. The kitchen was a disaster. Papers everywhere. A broken mug on the floor. One of the kids' shoes in the sink. It smelled like someone had tried to clean up and just given up halfway. Martin was upstairs, and when he heard us come in, he stomped down. He started right in, asking what I was doing, why I'd run off with the kids. He tried to make it sound like I was the one who abandoned him. My sister just stared him down and told him to back off, which he did, probably because she looked ready to throw down. We started grabbing clothes, toys, diapers, all the boring kid stuff. Every few minutes, Martin would try to talk to me, saying things like, "We need to figure this out. You can't just take the kids away from me." I told him, "I'm not the one with a plane ticket to Singapore." He kept insisting it was all a misunderstanding, that he never meant to hurt me, that he was lost and didn't know what else to do. He said he felt trapped, and that Grace made him feel alive again. I almost laughed at that, like, "Sorry you're bored, but maybe don't blow up your entire family?" Then he said something that honestly floored me. He said, "You always act like you know best. You never listen to what I want." Like, wow, okay, so this is my fault now? I told him I wasn't going to stand there and argue about who listens better. I just wanted my kids safe, and I wasn't going to sign anything ever that let him take them out of the country. He got quiet after that, but the look on his face was pure resentment, like I'd ruined his life by stopping him from running off with his girlfriend and my kids. As we left, my sister took photos of the house, the mess, the papers, just in case. Martin watched us go from the front porch, arms crossed, glaring. Back at my parents', Dad was waiting with info from his lawyer friend, who basically said Martin couldn't take the kids out of the country without my permission. But if he tried, it'd be a huge, messy legal thing. He said to watch out for Martin trying to get me to sign something just for travel or whatever, and to keep all the passports and docs somewhere safe. So of course my mom immediately put everything in a lockbox in her closet. She's not playing around. A few hours later, Martin's mom showed up at my parents' house. I was honestly dreading it, but she came in looking 10 years older, holding a big Tupperware of soup. She sat down and just asked, "Is this really happening?" I showed her the emails, the flight info, the money transfers. She got so quiet, just shaking her head. She said she never thought Martin could do something like this. Then she started crying, which, yeah, that sucked. My mom hugged her, and for a weird moment, it felt like we were all just lost together. Martin called while she was there, but she ignored him. She said she needed time to process and that she'd talk to him when she was ready. She even offered to stay the night in case I needed backup. I didn't say no. The kids loved having their grandma around. And NGL, I kinda did too. That night, I got a text from a number I didn't know. It was Grace. Just her name popping up made me want to throw my phone into the street. She said, I'm sorry for everything. I never meant for it to go like this. Please don't blame Martin. He's not himself. Like, excuse me? I didn't reply. I didn't even know what to say. The next day, my dad got a call from Martin, demanding to see the kids. Dad told him that wasn't happening until we talked to a lawyer. Martin got mad, said he'd call the cops, said I was kidnapping our children. Dad just laughed and told him to go ahead. So, now I'm sitting here, at my parents' kitchen table, watching my 3-year-old build a tower out of soup cans, my 1-year-old drooling on the iPad, and my mom and Martin's mom whispering in the living room about what to do next. My dad is making another list, and Martin is probably stewing in his own mess, wondering how it all went so wrong. I know we're just getting started, and TBH, I'm scared about what comes next. But for now, at least, the kids are safe, and I've got my family behind me. Second update. Okay, Reddit, here we go again. I'm not even sure where to start this time because it's been a whole new level of weird, tense, and straight up exhausting. If you've been following my last 2 posts, you already know Martin tried to pull off the most unhinged family relocation ever. Except I wasn't supposed to be part of the move. Martin started texting me again, but this time it wasn't just guilt trips or let's talk. He sent these long, frustrated messages about how he couldn't believe I was turning his own mother against him and how I was brainwashing the kids. He said I was making a circus out of nothing, and if I didn't start cooperating, he'd have no choice but to take action. I showed my parents, and my dad just muttered something about Martin having the emotional range of a teaspoon. I wanted to laugh, but and yell, it freaked me out. That phrase, take action, kept running through my head. Like, what did he even mean? Was he talking about court? Something worse? My mom told me not to answer, so I just blocked him for a while. Probably the best move, because I needed a break from the constant drama. But Martin wasn't done. He showed up at my parents' doorstep the next afternoon, completely unannounced. I was in the backyard with the kids and my sister, and suddenly my dad was calling me, saying Martin was at the front door, demanding to see his family. The way my dad said it, you'd think Martin was a door-to-door salesman or something, not the guy I'd been married to for over a decade. My first reaction was honestly just, nope. I didn't want the kids seeing him, not after what happened in the kitchen, not with all the yelling and the envelope and the shoving. My mom answered the door while my dad stood behind her, arms crossed, not saying a word. Martin started out all polite, asking if he could talk to his wife privately. My mom shut that down real quick, told him if he wanted to talk, it would be with the whole family present. Martin's mom came out from the living room, and the look she gave him could have frozen water. She said she needed to hear whatever explanation he had because none of this makes sense to me, Martin. He looked almost hurt, but just for a second before he went back to his I'm the victim here face. We all ended up in the kitchen. Me, Martin, my parents, Martin's mom, my sister, who was pretending to play games on her phone but definitely recording everything, let's be honest. The kids were in the other room with headphones and snacks, which I guess is the modern version of go play outside while the adults talk. Martin started with this big sigh, said he never meant for things to get so out of control, that he only wanted what was best for everyone, and that he felt like I'd blindsided him by running off with the kids and turning everyone against him. He said he didn't have a choice, that he'd been unhappy for a long time, and that I wouldn't listen whenever he tried to talk about how he felt trapped by our routine. He even tried the I'm sorry if you felt hurt non-apology. My mom cut him off, said, "You could have just talked to your wife. You didn't have to make plans behind her back or try to take her children away." Martin got defensive, said I'd never let him have a real conversation, and that every time he tried, I'd shut him down or change the subject. I honestly don't remember that, but maybe I was just tired of hearing about how everything was my fault. Martin's mom tried to get him to see reason. She told him she didn't even recognize him anymore, that the Martin she knew would never try to sneak his kids out of the country. He just shook his head, said he was desperate and thought it would be easier to start over somewhere new, with someone who actually cared about him. I almost snorted, because if Grace is the answer to his problems, then I guess I dodged a bullet. But whatever. My dad asked point blank if Martin ever actually planned to take the kids without telling me or getting my permission, and Martin just mumbled something about not being sure, and thinking maybe I'd come around if I saw he was serious. That's when I realized he really did think I'd just go along with his plan if he pushed hard enough. Like, in his mind, I was supposed to just hand over my kids and move to Singapore because he'd already bought the tickets. The conversation kept circling. Martin wanted me to just talk to Grace, get to know her, because she's good with kids and wants to be part of their lives. My mom practically choked on her coffee. My sister rolled her eyes so hard I thought she'd pull a muscle. I said I didn't care how good with kids Grace was. She wasn't the one who made them, and she sure as hell wasn't going to be their new stepmom without me having a say. Martin started getting frustrated, raising his voice, saying I was being unreasonable, that I was punishing him for falling in love with someone else. He said I'd changed since having the kids, that I was always tired, always busy, never fun anymore. That stung, NGL, because yeah, I am tired and busy and probably not much fun these days, but I thought we were a team, not contestants on some reality dating show. His mom told him to stop, that he was just making things worse. Dad told him if he tried to come near the house or the kids without permission again, he'd call the police. After he left, my mom hugged me, but I felt weirdly numb. I spent the rest of the afternoon with the kids, doing puzzles and eating leftovers, trying to pretend things were normal. But nothing felt normal. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time a car drove past the house, I checked to make sure it wasn't Martin coming back. A few days later, things escalated again. I got a letter from a lawyer, Martin's lawyer to be specific, saying he wanted joint custody and permission to relocate with the children internationally, should the opportunity arise. I showed it to my parents and my dad went off. He called his own lawyer friend who said not to sign anything and to start preparing for a real custody fight. So, I did the thing I'd been dreading. I met with my own lawyer. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for fronting the cash because Martin had drained our savings. The lawyer was blunt. Martin couldn't take the kids out of the country without my signed consent, but he could make things difficult in 100 other ways. She said to keep documenting everything. Texts, emails, even the stuff his mom and my sister had witnessed. She also told me not to engage with Martin directly and to let everything go through lawyers from now on. Martin, of course, did not stick to that plan. He started showing up at the kids' daycare trying to see them, even though the staff knew to call me if he showed up without warning. One morning, I got there, and the manager pulled me aside, said Martin had been waiting outside, asking questions about our schedule. She asked if everything was okay, and I just said, "We're going through some stuff. Please don't let him pick them up unless I say so." She wrote it down, made me sign something. I guess that's how you know it's real, when you have to sign paperwork just to keep your own husband from taking your kids. Meanwhile, my parents' house was starting to feel like a weird mix of safe haven and pressure cooker. My dad was stressed, my mom was tired, my sister was always on her phone texting her friends about the drama. My 3-year-old started having nightmares, waking up crying for daddy, which broke my heart. I tried my best to keep things calm, but some days I just wanted to run away myself. Martin's mom was still staying with us, but you could tell she was torn. She loved her son, but she also loved her grandkids, and she kept apologizing for not seeing this coming. I didn't blame her, but it was weird having her around all the time. Sometimes I'd catch her crying in the laundry room. Then, out of nowhere, Grace messaged me again. This time, it was a long, rambling wall of text about how she never wanted to break up a family and didn't realize how complicated things would get. She said she just wanted Martin to be happy, and that maybe if I gave her a chance, we could all figure out a way to make this work. I didn't even answer. What was I supposed to say? Sure, let's all move to Singapore and braid each other's hair? No thanks. My lawyer kept pushing me to get a formal custody order in place, so Martin couldn't just show up and take the kids whenever he felt like it. I dragged my feet, partly because I hated the idea of turning my whole life into paperwork, partly because I was still hoping Martin would just snap out of it and realize what he was doing. But the more he pushed, the less I trusted him. He started sending me screenshots of other people's messages saying things like, "Everyone thinks you're overreacting," and "You're making me look like a monster." I recognized some of the names, mutual friends, a couple of his cousins, but I also knew he was cherry-picking. I started second-guessing myself, wondering if maybe I was being too harsh, if maybe I was the one making things worse. But every time I thought about giving in, I remembered the envelope, the flight tickets, the way he grabbed my arm in the kitchen. I couldn't let myself forget. One night, my dad and Martin's mom got into a heated argument at the dinner table. Dad was frustrated. He wanted to protect me and the kids, but he also hated having so much tension in his house. Martin's mom said he needed to try harder to see things from Martin's perspective, that he's not evil, just lost. My dad snapped, said, "Lost doesn't mean you get to drag everyone else down with you." It got awkward, and my mom had to step in, trying to smooth things over. I just wanted to disappear. Meanwhile, the kids were getting more clingy, especially my 3-year-old, who started acting out at daycare and refusing to go to sleep without me in the room. The 1-year-old was teething again, because of course she was. So between the legal drama, the family tension, and the constant sleep deprivation, I was running on fumes. But I kept moving, because what else can you do? People kept telling me I was so strong, but honestly, I just didn't have another option. A few days later, my lawyer called to say Martin had filed a motion for emergency visitation, claiming I was withholding the children and alienating them from their father. I swear, every time I thought things couldn't get worse, Martin found a new way to surprise me. The court set a date for a temporary hearing, and suddenly everything felt real in a way it hadn't before. My parents started making lists of what I needed to bring, what evidence to print, who could vouch for where the kids had been. It was like prepping for battle, except the enemy used to kiss me goodnight and bring me coffee in the mornings. The night before the hearing, Martin texted me, not about the kids, but about the house. He wanted to know when I was going to come get the rest of my crap, because he needed space. He said he was staying at Grace's place now, and that he'd changed the locks. I guess that was supposed to hurt my feelings, but mostly I just felt relief. The house wasn't home anymore. My home was wherever my kids were safe. The hearing itself was a blur. Lawyers talking, documents being passed back and forth. Martin sitting across from me with Grace by his side. She didn't say a word, just stared at her shoes the whole time. The judge asked a ton of questions, mostly about the kids, our living situation, why Martin had bought those tickets, why he hadn't told me about the job transfer. Martin tried to spin it like he was just planning for the future, that he always intended to include me, but the judge wasn't buying it. My lawyer laid everything out. Emails, texts, the fight in the kitchen, the daycare incident. The judge said there was enough concern to warrant a temporary order. Martin could see the kids, but only in public, supervised, and only if I agreed to the date and time in advance. So here we are now, with a court order in place, the kids' passports locked away, and Martin sulking at Grace's place, still texting me about how unfair this all is. My 3-year-old has started drawing pictures of 2 houses, one with me, one with Daddy, and that lady with the glasses. I guess that's Grace. Do I think Martin's done? Not a chance. Final update. All right, Reddit, here we go. Final round, or at least I hope to God it is. I swear, if you told me last month that my biggest worry would be whether the kids had clean socks for daycare, I would have believed you. Instead, I'm splitting my life between my parents' guest room, tense court hearings, and supervised playground visits where everyone is pretending this is just a rough patch. If you've stuck with me so far, thanks, because this has been the wildest, messiest, most exhausting saga of my life, and I wouldn't have believed half of it if someone else told me. So, after the court put that temporary order in place, things got weirdly quiet for like a whole week. Martin kept texting, but it was mostly this mix of, when can I see the kids, and you're making this harder than it needs to be. I never replied directly, just forwarded everything to my lawyer. He also kept trying to talk to my mom, which, NGL, was hilarious because she started screening every call, and the few times she picked up, she'd just tell him to talk to his own lawyer or hang up. My dad joked that the house needed a no drama sign on the porch, but let's be real, nobody was laughing. Martin's mom was still staying with us, and it was tense, but not for the reasons you might think. She was super quiet, helping with the kids, but she started asking a lot more questions about what Martin was like at home, if I'd noticed him changing lately, if he was under pressure. She didn't want to take sides, but you could tell she was struggling. One night, after everyone else was asleep, she told me she blamed herself for not seeing how unhappy he'd been, and that maybe if she'd pushed him to talk more, things would be different. I didn't know what to say, honestly. I just said, he's not the only one who's unhappy now. She actually laughed at that, in a sad kind of way. The first supervised visit was at this weird little play cafe in town, the kind with overpriced coffee and a ball pit that smells like feet. My mom came with me because, let's be real, I wasn't about to do this alone. Martin was already there when we got there, sitting at a table with 2 drinks and a plastic dinosaur for the kids. He tried to act like everything was normal, but you could tell he was nervous. My 3-year-old ran to him, but the 1-year-old clung to me like a spider monkey. Martin tried to pick her up, but she just buried her face in my shoulder. He kept trying to make conversation, asking about the kids' favorite shows, if they'd been to the park, if they missed their old room. I answered, but only in the most basic way, like I was filling out a survey. My mom didn't even bother pretending to be friendly. She just sat there, scrolling through her phone, making it clear she was there to supervise, not socialize. Halfway through, Martin tried to talk to me about moving forward. He said he wanted to find a solution, that he deserved a fresh start, that things could be better for everyone if we just let go of the past. I asked him if letting go of the past meant forgiving the part where he tried to take my kids across the world behind my back. He just stared at the floor, didn't answer. My mom cleared her throat, and Martin gave up. At the end of the visit, the kids melted down, classic, and Martin tried to hug them both at once, but the 1-year-old shrieked and reached for me. He looked so defeated, But for the first time, I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, just done. Back at my parents', the mood was off. My mom said she was proud of me for keeping it together. But honestly, I just felt empty. My dad wanted to talk strategy. He was convinced Martin was going to pull something at the next hearing. Maybe try to use the supervised visits as proof that I was alienating him from the kids. I wanted to roll my eyes, but he was probably right. Martin's lawyer had already sent new paperwork, this time asking for more unsupervised time and throwing around words like parental rights and emotional harm. My lawyer said not to worry, but also warned me that these things never end neatly. A week before the next court date, Martin's mom announced she was moving out. She said she needed to support her son, even if she didn't agree with what he'd done. I understood, honestly, but the peace didn't last. Martin started pushing harder, showing up at the kids' daycare again, trying to talk to the staff, asking if he could just say hi. They called me every time, and each time I had to remind them that there was a court order. One of the teachers asked if things were safe, and I had to reassure her while wondering the same thing myself. The next hearing was a whole different beast. This time, both sides brought stacks of paperwork, printouts, and even some of those passive-aggressive texts Martin had sent me. The judge was all business, asking about schedules, support systems, what the kids needed. Martin kept saying he wanted what's best for them, but when pressed, he just repeated the same lines about fresh starts and new opportunities. My lawyer pointed out the money transfers, the job transfer papers, the hidden emails, and the fact that Martin had already bought non-refundable tickets before even telling me. You could see the judge's patience running out. Martin's lawyer tried to spin it as proactive planning, saying Martin was only thinking ahead for his family's future. I could barely sit still. My mom squeezed my hand under the table, and my dad just glared at Martin across the room. Grace wasn't there, but her name came up a few times. My lawyer didn't hold back about the family friend who suddenly became central to Martin's new life plans. At one point, Martin said, "She's the reason I finally felt alive again." And the judge just blinked at him like, is this guy serious? Even his lawyer looked uncomfortable. When it came time to talk about the kids, the judge asked if Martin had any concrete plans for supporting them if he moved. Martin got defensive, said he'd figure it out, that things would work out once they got there. The judge was not impressed. My lawyer hammered home the fact that I had never agreed to any move, that Martin had kept everything secret, and that the kids' lives had already been upended enough. In the end, the judge made a ruling that felt real. The kids would stay with me as primary parent. Martin could have supervised visits for now, with the possibility of more time if he showed consistency and responsibility. He was not allowed to take them out of state, let alone the country, without explicit written permission from me in the court. The judge said, "This is about stability for the children, not new adventures for the adults." Martin looked like he'd been punched, but didn't argue. Afterward, in the hallway, Martin tried to talk to me again. He asked if I could at least try to see things from his side. He said he just wanted to be happy, that he deserved a chance. I think I surprised him when I didn't yell or cry. I just told him that maybe next time he should try honesty. He didn't have a comeback for that. Back at my parents', it was relief and exhaustion in equal measure. My mom made a big dinner, my dad even opened a bottle of wine, and my sister had the kids making victory crowns out of aluminum foil. For the first time in forever, it felt like we were a family again, even if it was a different kind of family than before. The fallout hasn't stopped, though. Martin's side of the family is split. Some of them think I'm the villain. Others say he got what he deserved. Mutual friends are awkward, or taking sides. I had to block a couple of people who kept sending me just checking in texts that were really fishing for gossip. Money is tight, and TBH, the paperwork never ends. I'm still living at my parents' place, still figuring out the next steps. The kids ask about Martin. Sometimes they're sad, sometimes angry. Sometimes they just want to know when they can have pancakes for dinner again. I try to answer honestly, but mostly I just tell them we're figuring things out together. Martin hasn't tried anything drastic since the judge's decision. He still sends the occasional message, but they're more subdued now. Just updates about the kids' toys he found at his place, or questions about their favorite snacks. He's still with Grace, as far as I know, but she's not reaching out anymore. My lawyer says as long as I stick to the order, things should calm down, but I'm not holding my breath for a happily ever after. I'm not going to pretend I've got it all figured out or that everything is fine now. It's not. I'm tired, I'm broke, and I'm rebuilding from scratch. But I've learned that I can fight for my kids, even when it feels impossible, even when the person you're fighting is someone you used to trust with everything. I'm not a hero, just a mom who got pushed too far. So yeah, that's where I'll leave it. If you're still reading, Thanks for sticking with me. Real life is messy as hell.